Hi, it's WRTV's Ray Steele. I hope you like this video. In fact, I hope you will click that like button down there and click the subscribe button too so you don't miss the new stuff. Or you can click the subscribe button at the end of this video. Really appreciate it.
The insiders are back to talk special session and other matters. With us today, Republican Jim Merritt, Democrat Lara Beck, back for the first time in a while here on WRTV. Good to see both of you this morning. Unfortunately, we must start the segment today before we get into the special session with some just awful news that we got yesterday, literally right after we scheduled this recording session. And that's the death of Zachery Walorski, Republican Congresswoman from the 2nd District of Northern Indiana, as well as her communications director, Emma Thompson, and District Director, Zachery Potts, tragically killed in a car crash. It's just devastating news to the congressional delegation, to her district, really the entire state, and of course reverberating around Congress as well. Jim, you served with Representative Walorski in the state legislature when she was there. This obviously devastating, not just for Republicans, but for everyone who knew Congresswoman Walorski.
Yeah, very, very sad. Very sad situation here. It's just, as you said, it's awful. And Jackie was an incredible person. She was what I would call a constituent congressman, and the world will miss Jackie. And my best to the family, along with the true constituent heroes that were traveling with her, and also the person in the other car that passed away as well. I keep coming back to the word sad, because she was a friend of all, and not only she was a wonderful public servant, but a better person.
Lara, this is a time when we realize, and I guess we should realize this more often, that we should, and so we do, leave politics at the door. We try to leave politics at the door. I know the last few years that's been increasingly difficult for some people for a variety of reasons, not casting blame anywhere, but this is one of those times when we have to step back and realize that life is precious, regardless of the letter that comes after your name, whenever that name shows up on a TV screen.
Oh, absolutely. And I certainly echo Jim's sentiments in terms of her ability to serve her district, and her willingness to meet with all kinds of organizations from Indiana. I know that she was excellent with constituent services. But yeah, I think what you're pointing out is something really important, Ray, and that is that we're all human. Number one, we're all working on this journey together, regardless of what letter you have behind your name. But one of the things I've found over the years in working in politics and in working for elected officials specifically is some of the people who understand and respect and know your life the best are the people who have your jobs on the other side of the aisle, because they know what your life is like. They know what you have to do. They know the sacrifices you have to make. And I was really struck. It was a gut punch when I saw the ages of the two staff members who were with her, Emma Thompson and Zachery Potts, because I used to be a under 30-year-old staffer, and you're riding in cars at all hours of the day and night. You're on small planes. You're going from event to event. You're answering questions. You're helping the elected official. I worked for an elected official's wife, so you understand and respect that job that person has. And so some of the people who I know and have deep respect and friendships for are people who had my jobs on the other side of the aisle for other elected officials, and in fact we work together and are friends. So I think that's a piece that a lot of people miss a lot, is that behind the rhetoric, these are people involved, there are families involved, and it's, as Jim said, it's incredibly sad, and I think we need to honor the public service that these folks were doing.
Our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Representative Walorski, as well as Emma Thompson and Zachery Potts. The just tragic news that came out this week. The business of politics does continue, though, particularly here in Indiana, as the special session rolls on, and a lot happening in the way of the inflation relief debate. I want to get to that in a second, but Let's talk about the abortion restrictions. It's been a little bit of a ride as far as to how far these restrictions are going to go. And a lot of what happens the rest of this time might be governed by some polling that we have not publicly seen. Apparently, there was some polling taken by legislative Republicans ahead of the special session to gauge how Hoosiers feel about abortion restrictions. Now, Laura, we haven't officially seen this poll. It has kind of been leaked out there by various insiders, various political reporters, but we haven't officially seen it released by the Republican caucus. Now, as in kind of an insider yourself, have you seen this survey, or have you just only seen what we have seen? And that it appears to show that a majority of Hoosiers, north of 60%, support at least some abortion rights remaining the law.
Well, I haven't seen the poll. I've certainly heard rumors about it. It certainly has been lighting up my phone a little bit. Look, I'll say this about the poll, and Jim can probably speak to this better because Jim has been in polls before. But generally, when you don't like the answer to the poll questions that you were asked, you don't release those questions. So I think it's safe to assume that it's probably that the numbers that maybe some of these folks wanted to see are not there. We already know by the Bowen Center polling from 2017 that the majority of Hoosiers favor some type of favor abortion rights in some way or shape. We also know that there's some 2020 polling out there as well. So it would be consistent with previous polling. I know there's always, how is a question asked and those type of things. But my general rule of thumb is that if you don't like the response you get to the poll, you don't release the poll. And on the flip side, you'll leak out poll information if you want to move your position forward. So I think there's probably a lot at play there. But I think the biggest takeaway is this is not a popular bill. This is not something that Hoosiers want. And it's being essentially done in such a way that people are going to be really angry about it. And how is that going to translate to the midterm elections? And especially with you see what happened in Kansas, that's giving some hope to national Democrats for sure.
Yeah, I'll bring up Kansas here in a second. But Jim, when Republicans have whatever this poll says in front of them, as a former lawmaker, how do you balance whatever that is with your local districts? Because they may represent local districts, these lawmakers, whether this is their personal belief or not, but they may have a local district that might say, no, we want to have more restrictions on abortion or fewer restrictions on abortion. How do you balance a statewide survey that might be out there with what your constituents are saying?
Well, Ray, Lara is correct with that analysis of how people look at those polls, leak those polls, and it helps them form an opinion or change their opinion. It's not only polls, but life itself. The 10-year-old Ohioan who was brought over here, the lawsuit with Attorney General Todd Rokita, all these life events, legislators here. I mean, they also look. All 100 representatives are on the ballot in 97 days or so, and many of the members of the state senate are on the ballot as well. And there are departures from the Senate, meaning people are retiring, and so there's an incredible balance between all these events that are going on. And I know you want to talk about what is going on in the House committee. And I was really surprised by the 22-0 vote. And so Teddy Roosevelt, when he was charging up San Juan Hill, although it wasn't San Juan Hill, he called it the crowded hour. And I look at this time that we're going into as almost like preparing to vote on a budget, the biennial budget, where the House and Senate are doing the dance, and we're going to see some real situations going on in the next couple days.
Well, Ray, one of the things that Jim said, which not to preempt you, but I think one of the things that Jim said, which is really important, is that is that human story and that human side, is that the legislators do see that, their staff sees that. They have family members who are probably calling them and telling them stories about people they know, and are having those conversations. But I think at the same time, one of the issues that we have is you're looking at polling and you're looking at these various pieces. There are some facts such as Indiana ranks third for maternal health in the nation, and 50% of births are financed in Indiana through Medicaid. And those are some hard, cold facts that we can't ignore, especially as these bills are moving forward. So I think in talking about the human story, which is so incredibly important, the legislators are also balancing some of this too with the facts.
Now, bringing Kansas back up, you were, of course, alluding to the referendum that happened in Kansas this week, in which voters overwhelmingly there voted to leave abortion rights in the state constitution, therefore making it more difficult for the Kansas legislature to make any changes along those lines. Kansas, being a mostly red state like Indiana, that opened a lot of eyes here. It opened a lot of eyes across the country as well. But Jim, does what happened in Kansas really matter to folks in Indiana? How much are we actually looking at that when it comes to crafting whatever bill is being crafted right now, as opposed to maybe the electoral implications come November?
I think it all matters. I think it's a factor, and that with the polling that the different caucuses have shared that information, and as well as going to the grocery and somebody stopping you, and it makes a difference. And this is an issue that Laura, you'll probably chuckle at this, but I've always heard, and I don't know if it's fact, but 11% are for, 11% are against, and then everybody else doesn't care. And I'm sure the polling is different these days, but you have this stress about you. And with this issue that I'm glad the Republicans are addressing are the social service part of it, because there has to be a safety net. Republicans historically don't do a good enough job with the social service end of it. Every legislator should go through a crisis pregnancy center, and we need to continue to address foster care and the adoption credit. And I think this is a great situation to make sure that if you're going to be pro-life, be pro-life.
I mean, Jim's absolutely right on that piece. And I think the concern is, and I saw a really interesting number yesterday, is that what they're proposing right now doesn't go far enough. When you look at the maternal number, you look at maternal mortality, you look at infant mortality, you look at the number of publicly financed births, again, early childhood education, foster care, it doesn't go far enough. In fact, one of the bills out there right now is proposing $60 million a year, when a year ago they built a new pig barn at the state fair for $50 million. So I think there's probably more that can be done, especially in the surplus area.
Well, and some of those social services are addressed in our other topic, and that would be the bills targeting inflation relief. And some of the goings on there have been very interesting this week. And I've talked to some people, Jim, who are surprised when they watch committees, as we have seen in both the House and Senate, take bills that were passed by the other chamber, strip out the language completely, and replace it with the language that they passed in their chamber earlier. We've seen that happen in a House committee and a Senate committee when it comes to inflation relief and social services. This is, as our friend Abdul might say, how the sausage is made. You know that, and we know that. Not everyone knows that. And it's a process that a lot of people who don't pay attention to the legislature full time, or when they are in session, this happens more often than not, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, this is the dance, and this is the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans clearing the decks, and they'll have a list of what they will support. It's a lot like when the budget is passed and the biennial budget. And I think we haven't really given a whole lot of credence to that. The abortion bill was 2620 and wobbly, just really having no momentum coming out of the Senate. And so this is kind of a recipe for a soup, and what actually will go into it. And the Senate Republicans and the Republicans in the House will hopefully from input from the Democrats so that we can leave with something that not everybody can support, but it's something that is good public policy. And it's a dance, and it is the crowded hour where everybody has to put their very best foot forward and come with good public policy that members can go to the grocery store or the gym or church and talk about something and be proud of it. I'm confident they're going to get there, but it's confusing to the public now. It is sausage making. We've seen this so many times before, and I'm hopeful that they find a way.
Jim mentioned input from Democrats there, Lara. That's something that Democrats complained very publicly. I know Senator Tim Lannon, Senator Fatty Cadora did during committee, that there is not going to be any input from Democrats because this is going to go to a conference committee in all likelihood, whether it's abortion, whether it's inflation relief. And Democrats, due to their super minority status, are pretty much locked out from that debate and those decisions.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate, frankly, because that's not good government and it's not good politics. And we know supermajorities clearly are also not good government. Might be good politics for a little while, but it's definitely not good government. We're finding ourselves there now. I think this could have a negative effect, frankly, on independent voters. Because if they are looking at numbers that we believe they're looking at, they're showing what they're doing is incredibly unpopular, right? When folks are searching candidates and when they're looking for candidates to support, this is going to frustrate, I think, independent swing voters that there wasn't any kind of bipartisanship to get this done. And I think that could eventually, I think that could hurt them, particularly with, I think it could hurt them particularly with women. Going back to Kansas, one of the things that I thought was really interesting about that referendum is people thought, I think the sort of prevailing wisdom was that the cities in the urban area would sort of carry over and bolster and rise those, make those numbers higher. In fact, it was the rural areas where they saw just incredible support for the abortion rights. And I don't necessarily know if we're going to hit that in Indiana this cycle, but I think that Democrats are coming out swinging and they're going to be prepared to fight sort of combat, hand-to-hand combat in some of these districts.
And Ray, Lara is right. Republicans have to put those social services out there available to the public, but they also have to respond to women and women's services. And I will say that the House Republicans have addressed the diaper issue in some regards in their bill, and making them more available cost-wise to the public. Baby formula, that's been a struggle in Washington, D.C., and the availability of baby formula. But that's another part that we can address as Republicans. And we also have to communicate. Republicans have to communicate once this is finished how this helps people. And maybe they come up with more money for these different social services. But the key here is communicating all the good things that Republicans believe that come out of this special session, and also for it to be short. They wanted it to end tomorrow, that being Friday when we're taping this. I don't think that's going to happen. With the wobbly abortion bill coming out of the Senate with a 26-20 and with 4 people absent, are those 4 people going to be back? I don't know what the story is with the other 4 people and how they impact and how the abortion bill is impacted by the amendments in the House of Representatives. So it will be probably not entertaining, but it'll be interesting as the General Assembly goes forward.
Right. There's one other point I just wanted to make from what Jim said, and especially about the public input piece. I think that regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, I think that Representative Wendy McNamara did an excellent job in her committee because she let everybody testify. I don't personally, I think if you're going to have a bill out there that affects so many people that you need to listen to everybody. And in the Senate, it was really suspicious how you had some folks who were testifying and some folks who were not. But Representative McNamara, I mean, to her credit, she listened, she had everyone testify. She gave people the time to do it. There were good questions that were asked of some. So I think she deserves some credit for running a really good committee hearing and from letting people be heard.
Along with the whole committee, Democrats.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Republicans.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's very true. Thank you, Jim.
that is a march with how many hours that they sat in those chairs and listening to 160 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So credit to her.
Yeah, that was all. It filled up our day on the WRTV live stream, carrying that continuously. Very quickly, inflation relief question. I know it's not as black and white at this, but it's kind of lining up this way. It looks like House Republicans and Democrats, frankly, because it overwhelmingly passed, want the automatic taxpayer refund checks, as Governor Holcomb does. It looks like Senate Republicans don't want those, at least as of right now. Now, we don't know what's going to come out of conference committee, but if those checks, and I know it's one of many facets of that bill, but that's the one that probably gets the public's attention most, Jim. If those checks aren't coming, or if they don't end up in that final piece of legislation, how does that impact the governor? We don't know what he will do with it because he obviously wants the checks. And how will that impact the image of lawmakers in the minds of voters after hearing, hey, we're going to get checks, and now you're not?
Well, it's all according to which chamber you're in, and as well as if we can get the checks out, physically out to people, and that's been suspect in the past. Being a former Senate Republican, I always wanted to pay down debt, and we've paid down what, $3 billion this year or so in the unfunded liabilities of pension debt. And the state of Indiana constitutionally can't go into debt. And so I'm very pleased with how the Senate Republicans have addressed this. I think it'll be a compromise, and there will be checks. It really depends on how much the checks will go. But and yet I think it's important that we continue to address that teacher pension issue along with the other public officials. And I think it will be just a checklist with what's important. And it's time for it's been time for the governor to be involved. Maybe he is with his staff and we just don't hear it. The three different entities, if you will, have to make a decision very quick, because as we know, the longer you're in session, the more the public disagrees with it. And Lara, you may or may not remember this, but back in 1991, when I was just breaking in, somebody from Fort Wayne newspaper wrote an op-ed that for every day that we were in session, they needed to shoot a legislator, and that's how people feel about special sessions. They have to get this done.
But it reminded me what you said, reminded me what Joe Kernan used to say. Former Governor Kernan used to dress up as Santa Claus, and his always thing was about Santa Claus was he didn't hang around too long. You know, he came in for the sparkle and then got out of there. So that was always Joe's rule for being an effective Santa. But I mean, I think my take on this is actually probably pretty crass, but I really don't think people are paying attention to the refunds. I don't think they're going to pay attention to the refunds. I think if they get a check, they'll be like, what is this for? But what they are paying attention to is what's happening with abortion. And unfortunately I think marrying these two together was probably not wise, because anything they do in terms of inflation relief is going to be totally overshadowed by abortion and the abortion ban. I don't think that Republicans are helping themselves at all in terms of doing these together, because I just don't think people are. I don't think they're going to care, and I think some people are going to be really annoyed by it, because it just seems as, oh, we're taking away your rights, but here's a check for $125. So it is about communication, and I think in a lot of these districts you can do direct mail, but in districts where you have television, it's going to be really diluted, as well as with social media. So we'll see, but I personally think it's just going to be totally overshadowed by this.
Well, we will find out soon, and it's going to seem like forever before the special session is over, given the intense focus on it, but we will know sooner rather than later. Thanks to our political insiders, Jim Merritt, Lara Beck. Good to see y'all. Thanks for being here.